name's Austin. I'm a program coordinator for 18 Reasons, and today I'm going to be showing you 3 different easy recipes that you can make while we're all staying home. So you can make them together or separate, and I'll show you each recipe individually, but we're going to be making hummus, pita bread, and then we'll turn our pita bread into pita chips at the end. So before I start, I'll tell you about 18 Reasons, which is a nonprofit community cooking school based in San Francisco. And normally we teach the Cooking Matters Cooking and Nutrition Education series all throughout the Bay Area. But while we're all staying home, we thought we'd bring you some recipe videos to keep you cooking and eating and having fun until we can all be back together again. So the first of our 3 recipes that I'll be making today is the pita bread. And if you don't want to make your own pita bread, if you have some in your fridge from the store, that's totally fine. I like to make my own pita because it's really easy, easier than you'd think. And it comes out, I think, much better than the one that you buy at the store because that's been sitting there for how many days, and you'll get to see this one puff and create that pocket right before your eyes. So I think it's really cool. And it doesn't even take that many ingredients. All these recipes that we're making today are made with things that you probably already have in your pantry, or if not, you can make some easy substitutions for things that you do have.
So here's our sponge, nice and bubbly and foamy, so we're ready to move on to the next step.
All right, so now we're ready to actually make our dough. And the first thing I'm gonna do is reserve just about a half cup, it doesn't have to be precise, of our all-purpose flour because we're gonna need it later. And then I'm just gonna take our whole wheat and our all-purpose and put it right in with our yeast water mixture. All right. And then I'm gonna mix it up just a little bit. You can totally use your hands for this, I probably will later. Just until a shaggy dough starts to form. So you might be looking at it and thinking like, oh my gosh, this is not enough water, but just promise me, or I promise you that it will work out. So now we have kind of our shaggy dough. And just until there's no flour spots remaining, and then it's time to knead. Okay, so now we're gonna sprinkle our salt over and drizzle our olive oil. And now I am gonna get it with my hands and just combine all of this. So the last of your flour should be coming off the sides of your bowl. And now it's starting to look more like a dough. Give it a couple kneads in the bowl. And now, I promise my counter is clean. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour. And we're probably gonna use all of this reserved half cup by the end, so don't be shy with the flour. Scrape up anything that's left in the bowl. And now we're gonna knead for probably about 2 minutes until the dough stops being kind of lumpy and forms more of a smooth dough. And if your counter gets a little sticky, more flour, and the flour that you're adding will help the dough become nice and smooth. And I'm just gonna keep going like this for about 2 minutes. All right, so it's been a few minutes now, and you can see that the dough is transformed. It is now really smooth, and it's a little bit sticky, but I can still handle it. It's not gonna stick that much to the counter. And I still have, I don't know, maybe like a quarter of my flour left over. But I don't think I need it, so I'm gonna stop right there. And one thing you can do to test if your dough is ready to rise is if you poke it and it springs back just a little bit, that means that there's some gluten in there, and you see, poke. That means that it's ready to go. And that's true of most breads. It's gonna be a little different depending on what kind of bread you're making, but for this, I think we are ready to go. So I'm going to put it back in this bowl and cover it with some plastic so it doesn't dry out, and leave it in a warm place about an hour, and you'll see it'll almost double in size. It'll get really big. So look at it now, just our little dough ball in this big bowl, and we'll come back in an hour and it'll be a lot bigger. So see you then. So now we're gonna move on to our hummus. And this also takes things mostly that you probably already have in your pantry. The only thing that's a little bit unusual is this tahini. And what it is paste made from ground up sesame seeds. So it's kind of similar to peanut butter, but made from sesame seeds. Similar texture to peanut butter. I have it here in its own little container. If you don't have tahini or you don't want to buy it, it is available at most grocery stores, sometimes in the like ethnic food, like Middle Eastern section. But if you don't want to buy it, you can replace the tahini in this recipe with peanut butter or sun butter or some kind of alternate nut butter. I also have read that you can just leave it out or add a little more olive oil. I've not tried that, but people say that it works. So to make our hummus, the first thing we're going to do is loosen up the tahini a little bit. So I'm going to add the juice of half a lemon, about 2 teaspoons, to our blender. If you don't have a blender, you can do this by hand, of course. It'll just take a little longer. So here's our lemon juice. And I'm also going to add our tahini. And then I'm just going to blend this a tiny bit to get the two incorporated and to turn it into more of a liquid than this goopy tahini situation. All right, so we have our tahini and our lemon mixture here. That's all ready to go. So now I'm going to add all the rest of our ingredients except for half of the chickpeas. So I have 1 tablespoon of olive oil, a half teaspoon of salt, and a half teaspoon of pepper. You can of course adjust that to your taste. 2 cloves of garlic, again to taste, because sometimes this recipe is pretty garlicky depending on maybe how big your cloves are. I like it garlicky, but if you don't, you can put less. And then 1 teaspoon of cumin powder. And then here I have a can of low sodium chickpeas, and I like to use low sodium so that you can control the salt yourself. Like I just said, you can salt to taste, and this allows us to do it ourselves rather than have the can, whoever puts the beans in the can, decide how much salt they have. And I drained about half of the liquid that came in the can, and we're gonna keep the other half to loosen our hummus. And if you accidentally drain the whole can, as I have done in the past, you can just use water, and then it'll be fine. So I just put half the chickpeas, and I'm gonna save the rest for a little bit later. And then I'm gonna pulse this until it's smooth. Alright, so this is pretty much combined. I don't see any really chunks of chickpeas. I'm just gonna scrape around. If there's any tahini or anything hanging out on the bottom, we'll get that. And then we can add the rest of our chickpeas and whatever liquid is left in the can. And you just blend it until it's the consistency that you like. I like my hummus a little on the chunky side, so I'm gonna blend it until I feel like it's right for me. And here we go. So I think that's about it. And now I'm gonna give it a taste to see if the seasoning is how I like it. I think I'm gonna add a little more lemon and a little more salt, and then we'll be done. And that's hummus.
Here's our dough 1 hour later. It's super soft and way bigger. We actually don't need all this air, so I'm gonna punch it down, and then I will show you the next step.
So it's been an hour. Our dough is softer and smoother and lighter than it was before. I put a little oil in the bowl, so now it's definitely not as sticky. And the next thing we have to do after we punch our dough down is divide it into 8 pieces. And and these are gonna be our 8 pitas. I guess you could do more if you want them a little smaller, but I'm just gonna do 8. So I've got my ball, I'll just divide it in about half. Oh, 2 balls, and then half again, and half again. So we'll end up with a bunch of balls about the size of, I don't know, a big golf ball. See it there? And then, once you have 8, you're gonna roll them into a ball as best you can. You can do this on the counter, or you can do it by bringing all the corners in and just pinching. And this is now the bottom, so it looks like a little dumpling. See? And then this is the top. And now we have a nice, round, smooth ball. And once I have 8 little balls like this, I'm gonna cover them with plastic and let them rest for 10 more minutes. So once I've done all that, I'll come back and then we're gonna cook them. All right, so now I'm joined by my sister, Claire, and we're gonna show you how to roll out our little dough balls. They've been resting about 10-15 minutes, and now they're ready to roll into pitas. Okay, so now I'm gonna show Claire and you guys how to roll out these pitas. So Claire has a rolling pin, and I have just this bottle. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use pretty much anything that, you know, is flat and is gonna roll things out. So put some flour down, and I'm gonna start by just pressing out a dough ball. And if it's sticking, you can add some more flour. Can I get one? Yeah, go ahead. And then you can use whatever you're using to roll it. And we want it to be about a 1/4 inch, between a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 of an inch thick. So they'll end up being maybe more flour.
More flour, yeah.
They'll end up being maybe like 5 inches across and a little thick. We're not trying to make them super, super thin, because the thickness will help us get the pocket that we need. So here's my round. It's a little fat on one side, so I'll press it out. And yeah, that's good. They're probably gonna contract a little, and that's fine, but yeah, that's good.
Oh, it's so cute.
All right, so we'll keep doing the rest of these, and then we'll go take them over to the stove. All right, so now we're ready to cook them. Here I have a cast iron skillet that is big enough to fit our pita over a flame. It's been preheating for a couple minutes over medium-low heat. And then there's no oil or anything. I'm just gonna grab one of our pita circles, plop it right in there. And it'll cook for about 1 or 2 minutes per side. It's okay if it gets a little black, not across the whole thing obviously, but it'll get little bubbles that are black. And you'll see little bubbles start to form there and there. If you're lucky, the whole thing will blow up, and that's when you get the full pocket, but sometimes you'll just get like maybe half. So we'll see how this one goes. Getting some good bubblage. Have our hummus and our stack of freshly made pita, and we're gonna do one more sort of little bonus recipe. We're gonna make some pita chips. So take a couple of our pita, you can do as many or as little as you want. Cut them in half. How big do you wanna make the chips?
Pretty thin.
One more?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna cut ours into like, what is that, 8s? So we have little triangles like this. And then I have about 2 tablespoons of olive oil here and some salt and pepper, but you could absolutely put whatever you want. I was reading somewhere you can make like a hot Cheeto flavored sprinkle and put this in instead of, or in addition to the salt and pepper. So I'll let you do this because I don't want to get my hands dirty. So
just pour it in.
maybe not all of it, maybe like half of the olive oil drizzle over
lay them out on a sheet tray. Alright, we could do the whole stack, but I think we should save some to eat with our hummus because you could have either crispy chips or soft pita bread to dip into our hummus.
They're so cute.
Oh, they're cute, right? They're a little fat. And then we'll put these in the oven at 350 for maybe like 10 minutes, and then we'll see. Since these are fresh, they have a little bit of a higher moisture content than store-bought ones would. So those would probably only take maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, and these might take more like 15. But we'll keep an eye on them, and we'll check back when they're crispy. Here we have our 3 recipes: hummus, pita chips. All great healthy snacks